You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. You feel like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. At long last, love has arrived, and I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. Now, thank you so much for pulling up here today. Y'all already know that I am rooting for every single entrepreneur who is Black. And you know, when I'm thinking about Black entrepreneurs, I'm thinking about all of the resources that are due to us because we work twice as hard and we are twice as smart and we are twice as committed. But when it comes down to American policy, people expect for us to pull up by a bootstrap when they pull up by a policy. The stimulus bill has been an opportunity for Black entrepreneurs to get access to taxpayer dollars in ways in which other policies in the past have not. So if you are a Black entrepreneur and you are listening to this live right now and you know what it feels like to be denied by a bank, you know what it feels like to pitch your bright idea for a venture capitalist and he sees, right, money in your idea, but he can't get past the melanin. She sees the money in your idea, but she can't get past the melanin no matter how glorious it can be. This live is for you because what I think about is that anytime the government wants to hand out checks, anytime the government wants to hand out and disperse grants, I'm coming to be first in line. When you're able to say that your ancestors built this country for zero compensation, then whenever the government gives me money, whenever the government even offers to provide financial resources, well, I think that Black people should be first in line. Our ancestors are past due. So today, we're going to be talking about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which is actually a cash advance. And I'm going to walk you through all of the ways in which you can submit this 4-page application and potentially guarantee yourself up to $15,000 in funds. Now, for those people listening to this live and saying to yourself that $15,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money, let me contextualize this for you. A majority of Black entrepreneurs don't even gross more than $70,000 annually. And we are the only demographic of people whose gross receipts don't equate to more than 6 figures. So whether you think $15,000 is a lot, whether you think that $15,000 is a little, if somebody pulls up with 15 stacks, then you need to say hello and thank you. Are y'all ready to get into it tonight? I surely hope so. So like I said, for those people pulling up on BP time, we're going to be talking about how your enterprise can get access to $15,000, up to $15,000 in grants from the U.S. Small Business Administration. Now, before we get into the particulars of the grant, it's important that we get on the same page about nomenclature. There are terminology that is being used to exclude, in my opinion, certain demographics of people. So the name of this is called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Cash Advance. And generally, when you hear the word loan, you immediately think this is something that I'd have to pay back, right? When you're driving through the community and you see cash advance and you happen to take advantage of or have taken advantage of an opportunity like that, cash advance normally means I got you today, but you're going to get me tomorrow. I don't want you to exclude yourself from this opportunity because the words that are being used define one aspect of the financial field but mean something totally different from the stimulus. This loan is something that you have to apply for, but you do not have to accept. Let me say that one more time. You can apply for this loan, but it is not, get it? You do not have to accept it in order to get the cash advance. And the cash advance is actually a grant. All right. So I want to start with that baseline because sometimes we see terminology and we count ourselves out before we count ourselves in. So I want you to repeat after me. I will count myself in before I count myself out because my ancestors are looking over my shoulder saying, if you don't go get my money, I'm going to take off this belt. Let me not even go there, because I know there are parents on here right now talking about, girl, go get your money. You already know that your grandma done looked you in your eye, cross-eyed, and said, baby, if I got a business, I'll be applying for 15, 30, and 45K. The application, you all, is only 4 pages. So I also don't want you to hear I have to apply for something and again count yourself out, because you have to actually work for it. The cost of success is commitment, and for those who are unable to commit to what success costs, you are not deserving of cash flow. What type of businesses are they looking for? Now this is important, because I went through and I read the SBA legislation. These are the types of businesses that qualify. You can be a nonprofit organization, so that means if you are 501c3 that has submitted your Form 1023 paperwork, you qualify. You can be an LLC, you can be an LLP, that's a limited liability company, a limited liability partnership, you can be a corporation. But tonight I also want to assert that if you are a sole proprietor, you also qualify for this particular benefit. And a sole proprietor is someone who may not own an LLC, but you have a product or service that you have sold and someone has paid you for it. You are not a hobbyist, right? Which means that you own a business where you sell products or services and nobody pays them for you but the people in your imagination. No, you are a business owner, though you may not be an LLC. And I know there are sole proprietors out there that you may do hair, you may do lashes, you may fix cars, right? You may do that in your backyard, right? You may drive for Uber, you may drive for Lyft, you may drive for Instacart. You're asking yourself, is this benefit really for me? And as an independent contractor, as a sole proprietor, this is for you. But this is one thing that I did find that I want people to pay attention to. If you are engaged in multi-level marketing distribution, there's some guidance in there that says that you may not qualify, all right? And that's important because that's something that was in my slide deck. So if it's Avon, Herbalife, if you're engaging in that type of business, you may not qualify. So it's important for you to ask yourself your question, what type of businesses have you engaged in that may qualify for this particular opportunity, okay? I will shout out to those on Fiverr, shout out to those on Upwork, your independent contractors that also apply for this. Now, it's important for you to understand a couple of key things, all right? When you apply for this cash advance, you are also going to apply for a loan. And what that means is that you're going to have to go through some of the same steps that you would as if you were applying for a loan. All right? Doesn't mean you have to accept the loan. Doesn't mean that you have to take on debt, but you will have to apply for using a loan application, which means that they being the US SBA, will pull your credit. And that is one of the main questions that people have asked me. If I have low credit, if I don't have credit, is this an opportunity that's available to me? And if so, what is the number that is the threshold? Well, you know, Professor Keys I was in the forums, I was in the comment sections of SBA, I was in the FAQ of SBA, because you know I can pull some receipts, but I got to make sure it's official. And it appears as though if you're below the 570 and 600 range, then more than likely you will be declined. So they're looking for people that have above a 570, above a 600 for there to be no issues. But here's the other thing, okay? So if you're watching this, you're like, hey, Keys, I got a 569. Yo, I missed it by 1 point. What can you do for me? What can you do for my business? Unlike the first round of cash advances, if your credit score does not meet that threshold, there is an opportunity for you to provide an explanation. So perhaps your credit score went down because you had an unusual financial hardship, but you can provide credit reports that your credit score has been higher in the past, right? So perhaps your credit score has been high, but perhaps you recently experienced some fraudulent activity and your credit score dropped, right? Don't count yourself out before you count yourself in, okay? Next, you cannot have an open bankruptcy, and you cannot be late on child support. There is a baby daddy and a baby mama listening to this live right now, and what y'all just did, you threw some hair. Hello, you threw some hair, and men, you didn't roll your neck, you didn't roll your eyes, but you thought about it. You have to be current on your child support. And what I have read is that you have to be less than 60 days delinquent, right? So if you're delinquent by 59 days, still pay your child support. But if you at 60 plus, right, you on the 61st day, then guess what? You got to go get your money up and try to get this opportunity at another time. Also, and this is important, because this is questions that people had when we were talking about the PPP, when we were talking about the Paycheck Protection Program. You must have filed your 2019 taxes. Now, before you log out and be like, hey, listen, you know, the relationship that I have with Sam, my uncle, has been complicated as it relates to taxes for a few years now. I think Uncle Sam should be paying me, but Uncle Sam insists on me paying him, right? Uncle Sam got his hand out, you got your hand out, and right now you are in a match, and Uncle Sam is like, but you know what? I got the whole U.S. government behind me. What do you have behind you? So essentially what I'm saying is that you must have filed your taxes even if your taxes are not processed yet. So for those of you all who are late in filing taxes, I would highly recommend that you jump on TurboTax, you jump on Liberty Tax. Black Upstart just put out a list of Black-owned Liberty Tax franchises. Jumpin' Jack Tax, I believe that's Black-owned, right? You want to make sure that you file your taxes. It doesn't mean that they've been processed, but it just means that your business is on record with the federal government, okay? So go through that step. All right, and so next, if you have a felony on your record, it's mixed information on whether having a felony on your record for the past 1 or 5 years could potentially exclude you from this opportunity. So I definitely want to make sure that that's mentioned. All right? So let's keep going. The next thing is, you have to make sure that your business is located in a low-income area. Now, there are 2 particular opportunities that we're going to talk about today. That's a targeted EIDL grant, which is $10,000, and the supplemental EIDL grant, which is $5,000. 10 plus 5 equals 15. So for both of these opportunities, unlike the first cash advance, you have to live in a low-income community. And the SBA has made it really simple for you to make the determination on if that actually applies to you or not. So in that instance, you're going to go to a particular website, and that's the SBA EIDL.policy map. Do not try to remember that. I'm going to put the link in my bio, but you want to go to the website, and you want to make sure to enter your address. Now, this is where things get a little bit complicated, because there are a lot of Black business owners that do not have a brick and mortar store, right? So perhaps you're running a Shopify store, perhaps you have an online business, or maybe you do business outside of your home office, right? You go to work 9 to 5, you come home, you operate your business from 6 to 10 and 6 to midnight. So you definitely want to make sure that you either put your home address in there in order to determine if that's in the low-income area, or if you work out of a co-working space, you could put that address in there as well. One thing that SBA is not accepting is P.O. boxes unless you can provide proof that you've owned that P.O. box for a significant amount of time. Now, I did find one instance where somebody was approved for the EIDL cash advance, and they had a P.O. box, though, for 15 years, right? So if you just got a P.O. box last year, more than likely it will not count. Now, let's talk about the 2 opportunities. There's a targeted EIDL advance, right? So that's first, a targeted EIDL advance, and that is $10,000. Now, for those of you all who applied for the cash advance last year and you received less than $10,000, then this is an opportunity for the government to square up. So you know that cousin that owes you money? You know that cousin. Christmas 2012, you gave him $20 and he said, cousin, I got you. Right? You pulling up Christmas 2020 and you like, hey, cuz, you gave me $2, you owe me 18, and all of a sudden he got to go run an errand, right? He got to run to the corner store. You don't see him for another 2 years. Well, good thing for Sam, your uncle, he's decided to square up, because the first cash advance, they promised each entrepreneur $10,000. However, they only awarded folks $1,000 for every employee that they had. So if you put 2 employees and you got $2,000, then the SBA, if you qualify, will seek to square up and give you the balance thereof. And that example would be if they gave you $2,000, then that means that you are or could potentially be eligible for $8,000, right? So you already know what they teach you growing up. Don't leave money on the table because somebody else will pick it up. So you have to have less than 300 employees, all right? Less than 300 employees. Fewer than 10% of Black entrepreneurs actually have employees. So if you are a Black entrepreneur and you are listening to this, I'm talking to you. You must also have demonstrated 30% loss in revenue as compared to a same period in the previous year. So in 2020, okay, if you can find an 8-week period where you lost 30% of your income as compared to the same period in 2019, then you can qualify, right? So essentially find a loss in 2020 and compare that to the same period in 2019. And if it's 30% loss, then you qualify, all right? And so the next thing is you also want to make sure that your business was started by January 31st, 2020. Now, this goes for all the entrepreneurs who are watching this that are saying that my business is new. If your business is new, you want to make sure that you go to a community development financial institution. Okay, so if you have a new business, I just read a question, can I apply for this opportunity if I started my business this year, 2021 rather? No, your business must have been active and operating and making sales January 31st, all right, 2020. And then next is a $5,000 supplementary EIDL grant. And essentially what that means is $5,000. These are for the hardest hit businesses. So these are businesses that have fewer than 10 employees. These are businesses that have experienced 50% loss in revenue. So I know folks who are listening to this, if you are an Uber driver and you was riding around and getting it, 2019, nobody can stop you. It's like Jay-Z, who won't stop me now? Not you, right? So you picking up 4 or 5 customers. You at the airport, you at the 7-Eleven, you at the apartment buildings, you at the apartments, right? You picking up all types of people. And then 2020, folks stayed home and Netflix, chilled, and made babies, right? And so your car's sitting up here full tank of gas. You ready to take people from point A to point B, but you still stuck on point A. If you lost more than 50% of revenue over an 8-week period in 2020 as compared to 2019, you qualify. So let's talk about the application, because it's important that you don't check the wrong thing as you get through to finish, all right? They're going to ask you for your business name. There are some entrepreneurs listening to this and you're saying, I do business as myself. And that's okay. If they ask for your business name and you do business as yourself, you want to put your name. They're going to ask for your trade name. And a trade name just means my name may be Professor Keys, but I may do business as Keys' Cookies, right? So I would want to put Keys' Cookies down as my trade name, right? What people write checks to, what I have my Cash App registered as, okay? Also, you want to make sure that you know your gross revenues. The SBA is going to be asking you for documentation, and essentially what that means with documentation is they're going to want to see your monthly income statements for a full 12-month period, all right? So I know I just mentioned Cash App, but if you cannot pull up your bank statements, right? You don't have a bank account where you have income statements and you can prove that you've earned revenue over that year, then you may have trouble getting this opportunity, right? So Black folks, that's why it's important for us to get our business lives in order, right? So it's been a whole year since this stimulus bill introduced tens of thousands, for some of you all 20,000 plus, an opportunity for some of you all 100,000 plus, and some of us missed out on it because we didn't file taxes, right? You didn't have an employee identification number, right? You didn't know if you were a sole proprietor, right? You didn't have a bank account. So here's an opportunity for you to get your business house in order. And in this instance, you will have to provide income statements. You're going to have to know your cost of goods sold, all right? So COGS. It's important for you to know this term whether you're applying for the cash advance or if you're not. The cost of goods sold is just how much money you spent making your product or delivering your service, right? So if you're a lash girl, right, what does it cost for you to do business? Do you have to purchase the lashes? Do you have to purchase the glue? Do you have to purchase the tweezers, right? Do you have to purchase the Bible because you have to pray every single time you pull a piece of hair out of somebody's eyelash or eyebrow and they balling up their fist and putting their hair in a ponytail? You got to pray to Jesus, please, Lord, don't let us go blow for blow. So you want to make sure that you know how much it costs to provide your product or also deliver your service. That is cost of goods sold. And they're going to subtract that from your gross revenue in order to determine what your gross income is. Okay? So don't be run away because you see COGS. All right? Also, they're going to ask for general information, and they are going to ask for your social security number. Now, it's important for you to know this. If you own several businesses, each of your business can qualify for this cash advance. So if you drove Uber as a sole proprietor, but you owned an LLC that provided educational courses, you can apply for a $15,000 grant as an Uber driver, and separately another $15,000 grant for your educational business if it meets all of the qualifications. So that is $30,000 total, right? That could be available to you if you own two businesses, right? Because one, you qualify with your social security number, and the other one, you would qualify with your employer identification number, right? Your EIN. So if you have multiple businesses, again, don't count yourself out before you count yourself in. But as the personal owner, right? As the sole owner, they will ask you for your social security number. And when you provide your social security number, essentially what will happen, right? What will happen then is they will check your credit, right? So that's when I talked about your credit being higher than 570, 600. So be prepared for that. And if your credit cannot take a hit because it will count as an inquiry, you may want to delay that, right? So if you're looking to buy a home and you can afford 1 or 2 points, if you're looking to buy a car and you cannot afford 1 or 2 points, that's just a heads up that when you give them your social security number, they absolutely will pull your credit. All right? You will have to list a bank name, routing number, and also a banking number, right? An account number. So it's important that you have that information available because the funds will come in a wire transfer. And people normally ask, how long will it take for me to actually get my check? The processing time is up to 21 days, right? You will not receive an email notification talking about if you got 5 more days, you got 11 days, you got 12 days. You know how it is when you're waiting for your paycheck, right? Some of y'all, I think one of my favorite people, Lynn Richardson, who talks a lot about financial literacy, said people ain't living paycheck to paycheck, they living paycheck to Monday. So you may have your bank account open looking at 11:57, just waiting for midnight to hit for your paycheck to come through, right? For that direct deposit to come through. SBA is not going to give that to you. They're saying the processing time is up to 21 days, and it's important for you once you submit this application, and a lot of people didn't do this, all right? So it's important for you to do this. When you submit your application, you want to screenshot what your number is, right? What is your confirmation number? It's specifically called a submission number. Screenshot that so that you have it, right? In the event that SBA calls you or you need to call SBA to make changes to your application or ask a question, because they're going to say, what's your submission number, so I can look up your record, all right? So you want to make sure to screenshot that page, print that page, make sure you have it. Also, the cash advance does not at all affiliate itself with the Paycheck Protection Program loan. So if you receive your Paycheck Protection Program and you're worried about, can I get the PPP and also can I get this cash advance, you can get both, okay? You can get the PPP and you can get the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, all right? So those are the main tenets of the EIDL cash advance. It's 4 pages. I went through all 4 pages. It took me about 45 minutes to get through all of it. And so the main message here, y'all, is that you don't want to count yourself out before you count yourself in. I always tell entrepreneurs, you either win or you learn. The only way that you lose is if you quit. And if you are a Black entrepreneur watching this, understanding that at the height of the pandemic, you as a small business owner, you as a person who went to work every single day for a separate but unequal paycheck, you were competing with publicly traded companies like Shake Shack. You were competing with Ruth Chris. Ruth Chris probably charged people more for a steak than you made last month. They were competing with your Lash Girl, Joel Osteen. I know you might love the way he delivers his messages, but he was competing with your barber. So when it comes down to money being on the table, Black entrepreneurs, if you leave it there, somebody else will pick it up. And we already know that in an American capitalist economy, that there are populations of people that benefit from owning a business, sometimes more than Black entrepreneurs, not because we're not genius, not because we're not talented, not because we're not creative, but simply because we don't become informed and fight for those policies that are created on our behalf. The fact that this is for entrepreneurs that have fewer than 10 employees lets me know that this was created specifically for us. So if we leave this money on the table, again, we leave it there for somebody else to pick it up.